Okay, hey guys, what's up? It's Amanda Speaks, and I'm coming back to you with another video. So, for all of you who signed on to the webinar, thank you guys so much. And today is day 3. Almost forgot how to count. Day 3 of the webinar. And if you guys have learned anything thus far, you can comment in the chat. But today I have with me a special guest by the name of Mr. Kevaughn Knight. Greet the people.
Hi, everybody. Thanks for tuning in. It's a pleasure to be here.
So tell us a little bit about yourself, Mr. Knight.
A little bit about myself. All right. As you know, my name is Kevaughn. I am a matriculating fourth-year student at Church Teachers College, Mandeville, pursuing a Bachelor's of Education and degree, majoring in English language and literature. I am a youth at heart and a youth by age, by the Commonwealth definition of youth. I also consider myself to be an advocate, an entrepreneur, and a people person, a person that creates memories and loves bread.
Okay, sir. By the way, I will try to leave his social media in the description so you guys can follow him up, and go support him, follow him up, Fast Nam Life. Yeah. Okay, so the first question I have for you is, from a gender perspective, do you think there's a difference between how men and women handle conflict?
From a gender perspective, I don't want to limit it to a gender perspective, because I think how we deal with conflict stems from our social upbringing. I think on a broad scale, it's social and cultural. I think most of us really don't learn how to internalize things and learn how to live peaceably with people. We have a tendency to be very selfish. It doesn't really matter with gender. I mean, there's instances where we would gender stereotype people and say, women tend to lash out and are more witty and mouthy than men are, yes. But at the same time, we have to consider the fact that with age and maturity and with time, that things seem more platonic on a more plateau level with regards to gender and conflict management. Conflict resolution is generally something that we have to learn and acquire over time on our own. If you would have learned it independently through education, whether it be formal or informal, whether it be personal or professional, kudos to you, but most of us have to really struggle to learn conflict management on our own. But as it pertains to gender now, I think women tend to do conflict management a little less than men do. I think men generally, really and truly, we don't really care about a lot of things.
Yeah.
And we try not to allow things to bother us on a great extent as it would women. Or in our culture, we don't tend to show emotion. So it is a little less difficult to handle conflicts with men. I think men also get into more physical contact than women do. I think women are the type of persons that will prolong a conversation, will prolong malice as opposed to a man. So those are little things based on our culture and social upbringing that we have.
Interesting. It just seemed like you want to just answer everything in one, before even reaching other questions. But okay. But that kind of brings me to another thing. You mentioned that men don't necessarily prolong conversations, or they don't let a lot of things bother them. But do you think that men internalize things too much?
Too much. I think the issue with men is, especially in our culture in Jamaica, is that we are taught that we're not supposed to cry, we're not supposed to express ourselves in a particular way because it makes us effeminate. The problem is that needs to be debunked rather, because it's a myth. I feel like men we do think about these things, but the problem is that because of what culture says, because of what society says, we don't necessarily allow ourselves to experience emotion. We don't allow ourselves to really and truly examine how we feel. But instead, we just look at the situation and say, all right, probably I can't control this, I'm just going to put it to the side. And what happens when we constantly push our emotions to the side is that we build up anger over time and hate and bitterness. And because of that, eventually, the boiling pot explodes at the end of the day.
So how would you, what is some advice that you'd give males to like cope with certain conflicts or cope with certain emotions, especially when they turn bitter and, you know, there's also hatred growing inside?
What advice would I give somebody who becomes bitter or have a lot of anger inside? I think the greatest advice to give to somebody who has problems with conflict and anger management is to learn how to forgive. I really feel that forgiveness trumps bitterness. Forgiveness trumps pent-up anger and hatred. Once you learn how to forgive, not only forgive people, but forgive yourself for making any potential errors or past errors, you will really and truly learn how to live a better life and learn how to understand people. Forgiveness also lends itself to understanding and appreciation of the fact that we're all human beings and that we are all prone to making mistakes. So once we have that level of understanding and trying to love each other, we'll understand that, hey, conflict can be resolved by simply just reserving how you truly feel sometimes, because sometimes you have to give up your right to be in the right. It's best sometimes that we allow ourselves to just assimilate to what the circumstance is and be quiet for the sake of peace, as opposed to allowing ourselves to, you know, express and be all up in everybody's face and end up making everybody else get a wrong influence on you based on how you were responding to the situation.
Okay. All right. So how would you approach this? All right. Can you give us an example of when you had to be a peacemaker in a conflict, or just a conflict you observed, and what was your thought process? How did it feel?
An example of when I had to be a peacemaker. An example of when I had to be a peacemaker. Let us throw back to 2010 when I was in high school, and a friend of mine and his girlfriend were going through a separation. All right. So what was happening is that somebody cheated on somebody. I'm not going to go into the details to spare you all of it. So somebody cheated on somebody, and somebody had pent up anger and wanted to fight somebody, and it ended up in a whole argument. So what I had to do to step in the middle of that particular argument is to carry one outside and speak to them. And what we do in that situation is allow each other to see from another person's standpoint. So, okay, I cheated. Would I want to be forgiven? Would I want to be given another chance? Would I want to be left alone? Would I allow myself to heal from the situation, as opposed to, I'm going to cut you off, I'm going to stab you in your neck, I'm going to pummel you to the floor? So when you ask yourselves a flip or inverse question as to how the situation could have went if I chose to do an alternate route, things turn out much easier. So it's all about really and truly thinking about the good and the bad in the situation and weighing whether or not you want the good or the bad. We can either go to prison or we can live to fight another day.
Okay, got you. And that it happens a lot because a lot of people only think from one perspective. A lot of people only think that I'm the only one right in the situation and the other person is not going to understand. Right. So this goes to ask, do you think that emotional intelligence is linked to conflict resolution?
Yes, it is. Emotional intelligence is something that we all need on a broadband basis, especially when you're in leadership. Emotional intelligence, it speaks to being able to identify with one's personal emotion and the emotion of others. It tends to lend itself to whether or not I am able to appreciate you despite the fact that I didn't get that promotion. I didn't feel, though I feel entitled to a thing and you got it, I can appreciate the fact that, hey, I don't have it, you have it, and so I'll respect you without the fact that I didn't get it, right? It lends itself to the fact that we are able to identify with others' situations and know how to give sympathy and empathy. It's a broad thing, and all of these things can simply soothe conflict, because a lot of time people really aren't responding to how you respond there. It's responding to a trigger. We might encounter a man on the road today and we trigger that man, but we don't know what happened to the man before us. That man could have lost his wife 2 minutes ago. That man could have lost a whole livestock on his route to wherever we are going as well. We don't know what people are experiencing throughout the entire day. And so when we're able to look at the thing from not only the fact that, hey, he disrespected me today, and that, okay, something probably triggered him along the way, then we would understand, hey, this does not need to happen or exude itself into a conflict, right? So whenever we realize that the world is not revolving necessarily around us, and that other things are happening in other person's lives, then things will become much easier to handle and conflict will be much easier to solve.
Okay. So where is the line drawn really in that when it becomes like a repetitive thing? So somebody, for example, using the same example, you disrespecting me at the workplace or whatever, when it becomes a repetitive thing, is that where the line is drawn? And that's where you're supposed to kind of step in, defend yourself, if lack for a better word. But is that when the line is really drawn?
All right. So there are several ways to deal with conflict, right? Conflict can be done by simply avoiding the person or avoiding the issue. Conflict can be done by confronting the issue on a mutual basis and having a mediator in front. Conflict can be sorted out by simply just expressing how you feel in a respectful manner to the person individually as well. If you come to me and I realize you have a behavioral tendency that I do not appreciate, I'm going to come to you and I'm going to confront you and I'm going to say, hey, you're doing this, I hate it, stop it. And you will be surprised at the fact that I think most people aren't honest with their emotions, and because they're not very honest with their emotions, they tend to allow themselves to feel suppressed and oppressed by whatever other persons are doing. However, if we are more confident in ourselves and more able to identify what is our personal trigger and be able to vocalize that to other people, you'll find that most people live so much comfortably because, hey, people prefer clear-cut people. When you tell me what you want, if I cannot give you what you expect of me, I'm going to leave you alone, and that's just how the world works. Now, when it comes to bullying, if you are a constant bully or a constant trigger, report it. If you are a constant trigger in the workplace, report it. If it's not working out, you leave. The truth of the matter is, sometimes in order for you to evade violence or evade further conflict, it's best that you remove yourself from the situation completely, because if you don't, at the end of the day, you're the one that is going to be on the poorer end of the bargain.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. I totally agree with that. I was recently speaking to somebody, I think it was this week, about stepping out of our comfort zone and stepping out of trouble in general. Because I feel that sometimes our comfort zone can be a trigger for us. Because we know that we're not satisfied here. We know that we're not okay here, but we don't want to move because it's where we feel most safe. We feel comfortable. And we live in this kind of unease for a long time, even for the rest of our life until we retire. And then we wonder why we're so bitter, why we're old, and we're just crying and shouting at the grandkids and like, no, you need to go take out the slippers.
Right.
Yeah. But I also want to point out something. You did say one of the ways to solve a conflict is to have a mediator. I do want to remind us that a mediator should be, it won't always happen, but it should be somebody that does not have a biased opinion. So it's not that, yeah, it shouldn't be somebody who, I them know me for a long time and they're going to stick up for me, they're going to defend me or whatever. It's one out of two things. And you can, tell me if I'm right or wrong. It's either they don't know the situation at all. You're going to come to them, you over here and the other person over here, and you're going to just tell them what the situation is from both perspectives. Or it is that the person really ain't showing no completely, but they're able to give sound advice.
Right.
Yeah. And there's something else, but I genuinely don't remember right now. But you did mention something about leadership. And as a man who has been in many leadership positions, as you told us in the beginning, how do you handle conflict with older persons? Giving the example of when you shared on Sensational Minds, I did remember when you went to speak to these people about insurance, and their facial expressions weren't the best. A lot of people would have gotten riled up and be like, I'm done with this, I don't have time for these people. But you handle it in a manner where it took a lot of maturity. It took good leadership skills, and especially not to judge people at the get-go. So share with us, like, how was that experience, one, and two, how do you handle conflict with older persons?
That experience, as I would have said, it was, for me in the moment, it was a bit mind-boggling. I feel like most adults don't appreciate when young people have a conviction or a word to put in, as it pertains to their personal lives or as it pertains to life in general, because you're considered as inexperienced and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
When really and truly, most adults don't know what they're doing. All of us are really bringing life together. So I don't think there's a map to life. We don't know the map to life. Life happens, and we have to appropriate ourselves accordingly. So they are most unappreciative of that. So when I was put in that position to speak to them about wealth, about motivation, about stuff like that, they probably were saying, hey, but what does he know about this? He has never even lived more than 21 years on this earth. So does he know what it feels like to go through a divorce? Does he know what it feels like? And then this problem. But then what happens is that when you open your mouth and you speak with very much conviction and you speak knowing what you know and what you would have experienced, things would have come off in a different light, right? As it pertains to how I deal with conflict with adults. I allow adults to have their way. I think rambling is a great thing. I feel like people should ramble. Whenever I remember when this lady and I were having a conflict. You know the person very well as well. We had a big argument in a public parking lot, and it could have escalated so wildly like wildfire. However, what I did is I allowed her to ramble. So I allowed her to speak and express how she felt and just talk and talk and talk to the point where she was like, you don't have nothing to say. So yeah, she just rambled and went off until she started to cry. And by the time she started to cry, that is when I began to speak. I allowed her to empty her soul until she had nothing else to say. And then I put in my 2 words, my 2 cents, that allowed her to form some form of contentment with whatever I needed to say, and allowed the situation to die down pretty easily. Sometimes we just don't have to respond in the moment and try to shout, because what's going to happen is one is trying to go higher than the other. And the moment everything escalates, it might get physical. So when you allow people to express themselves, things are much easily dealt with. Adults feel like like they have the authority and the the wherewithal to always want to talk. Or people with age, they have respect and they demand it. And so what you do is give it to them. And when they get it, and they're through with getting whatever they desire, then you make your sense known. And after you make your sense known, what you don't know and what they don't realize is that the person who speaks last usually has the most autonomy over the conversation. Greatest leaders would have told you in the world that whatever they do, especially in the business world, whenever you're listening for new ideas and stuff, you speak last. You allow everybody else to speak and assimilate all of their ideologies and all of their things in order for you to conscrew whatever mindset you want to inculcate into them, or to form a particular analysis and come to an objective conclusion with regards to the situation. So allowing them to ramble, you will identify where you have wronged them. Then you are able to say, hey, because this is going on right now, I'm going to just tell you what you did to me, but in a softer tone to avoid the conflict even further. So you're able to express with them your apology first. And then after that, you're able to tell them what you didn't appreciate and what triggered you to possibly cause the conflict in the first place, right? So apologizing, forgiveness starts there. And then after that, you make known your emotion. Because the truth of the matter is, if you don't talk about how you feel, if you don't talk about what made you feel wronged, it will never change.
That's good. That's good. That's good. There's something as well that you said that I really want to point out because I don't think a lot of people put a lot of emphasis. There are two things actually, but one of them is tone. I think people don't get the concept, nor do they really understand that sometimes it's not what you say, it's actually how you say it, right? And I see this a lot, like it plays out a lot in relationships and friendships because, and entitlement kind of comes into this as well. And I wanted to ask you, how much impact do you think entitlement has on a relationship? Because I think people have, I guess, their own preconceived ideas of what a relationship should be like or what a friendship should be like and the things you should get in a friendship without really asking the person or getting to know if the person experienced any of these things themselves. Because we always have to understand that we can't give what we don't know or what we have never experienced, right? You can never give from an empty cup. So yeah, I'm going to throw that question to you. How much impact do you think entitlement has on relationships?
Entitlement is something that breeds contempt. Entitlement is like two very strong hands stifling someone. Entitlement is something that we need to get rid of. Entitlement stems from, I think, Gen Z in particular. We really feel entitled because we get all of the good things in life and when I work for nothing really hard. So outside of the fact that Gen Z has that problem, other people have it as well. Entitlement, we are not entitled to anything in life. We're not even entitled to life itself. We are, or what I should say is we should be grateful for whatever we get, withstanding the fact that we know what we deserve.
Expound on that right there.
If you are not getting what you deserve, and you know that what you're receiving is subpar, it's your decision to leave whatever predicament that you have put yourself in, whether it be in a job, a relationship, friendship, doesn't matter. Once you feel like you're getting subpar what you deserve as it pertains to you giving things and not receiving to the same level, although I don't believe that people should give 50-50. I think people should give 100, give entirely of yourself. If I find that you're giving all that you can possibly give and it's still not satisfactory for me, that's when I move. But as it pertains to you knowing the person and you would have gotten 100 and then it falls to 50 and they choose not to give you any more than 50 and you're giving 100, that's a disadvantage, leave. But as it pertains to entitlement, you are not entitled to a phone call in a relationship. You are not entitled to a text message in a relationship. Those things are common courtesy decisions that have to be made and a mutual agreement with your partner. But as it pertains to you thinking that, hey, I must get these things and I must do this and I must do that and have to pay my rent and have to buy my car and this and that. No. It does not belong to you. The only thing you're entitled to is your salary after you work. The only thing you're entitled to is a birth certificate after you're born. The basic human rights that your country and human rights UN gives you, that's the only thing you're entitled to, really and truly. Outside of that, whatever you have is a privilege and is a gift that people extend to you, especially in the ambits of relationships. If people care for you, they'll give you their all. If they don't, they won't. It is what it is. And the moment that we understand that it is what it is and we choose to settle, that is up to you. But life is a decision and it is not predetermined and you do not get what you feel like you deserve, because oftentimes we overrate ourselves and we feel like, okay, I deserve the world, but you really don't.
That one the hard to follow right there. Okay.
Yeah, because sometimes they're really counterproductive and underproductive as people, and we're not really necessarily admitting how we truly are. I'm not talking about just the fact that, hey, there are persons out there that are really doing great things and really are trying. But we're talking about the mass, the normal person, the average person. We're really counterproductive sometimes. We really spend a lot of time wasting time, and it's proven by statistics, especially with social media. If we really chose to be productive, we could have, right? So it is what it is.
All right, guys, I'm telling you, y'all getting a mouthful. Listen, I'm here swallowing my own pill, guys. It's all right. All right. So there's something it's kind of been bothering me, and it's something that I also am trying to work on as an individual, and it is communication. I've found out that a lot of people don't know how to communicate. They don't know what it means to communicate or how to communicate effectively. And we see this by even impulsive behavior where people literally don't listen to understand. They listen to hear, to respond, to give their opinion, but not necessarily to understand yours. So what would be the main 3 things, at least 3, you can name more, but at least 3 things that you would say would help with communication?
Communication. Transparency helps with communication, telling people exactly what is the situation that is before them, telling people what to expect, what you have to offer. It's like, really and truly, I think that all of our relationships are investments. They have good and bad investments. Relationships, you need to know what are the pros and the cons of the person that you're investing your time, effort, and money into. And that is done over time. It's not something that you can buy off of a shelf and just read the label and take it with, right? So communication has a lot to do with unfolding who you truly are. You can live with somebody for years and not know them. Parents live with their children for years and do not know them. Friends experience a completely different person than what a parent would, or a family member would. All of that is lapsed in communication. So once you're transparent, number 1 is a key, right? Number 2, being very clear. Messages need to be clear. I feel like sometimes instead of being very spot on, we use a lot of words and go around the issue. If we were more confrontational with regards to how we feel or what bothers us, things would have been much better. I feel like we're not very frank and very honest people. And when you're very honest and very frank, you're oftentimes considered to be callous and miserable and mean and shrewd, which it is oftentimes not so. Because people, as I continue to say, people tend to lie to themselves, and because they feel as though they want to live a particular life, feel like they deserve certain things, as I was saying before. So if you're frank and shrewd, not shrewd, but frank and open, very honest in communication, it works out as well. Number 3, I feel like we need to just be real, be yourself, be authentic. Authenticity is something that is very much lacking when it comes to communication. Lots of people are afraid to be vulnerable with people, whether it be in relationship, whether it be business, whether it be leadership. We're really afraid of allowing people to see the true us, the person that you see when you go home and stand in the mirror. We're so afraid of living that particular person that we oftentimes just put on several personas. I must admit that I am a several persona person. You know how to behave here, there, and everywhere, and when you're alone and when you're with friends, and so oftentimes we what should I say, compartmentalize ourselves and give ourselves to people in particular sections, which I agree with to some extent because it's effective. As it pertains to leadership, sometimes it's effective when it comes to friendships, relationships, because you really don't know who is true from who is not sometimes. But at the same time, but there must be a level of authenticity shown across all boards as it pertains to who you really are. Are you faking your extrovertedness or ambivertedness, androvertedness? Are you faking your richness and lavishness? Are you faking who you truly are because you want to be accepted by the crowd? just live how you're supposed to live, communicate how you're supposed to communicate by virtue of who you truly are.
And that's true. That's true. It reminds me of, the book you got me on, The Go Giver, which you guys definitely should read it. It's a really, really good book. But I also want to say that the whole authenticity thing, you can't be fake and expect to reap real. I strongly believe in whatever you sow, you shall reap. So whatever you're giving to people is what you will receive. A lot of people will call it karma. A lot of people will call it the universe. A lot of people will say, it's just the aura around you, whatever. But the truth is, whatever you put into the atmosphere, whatever you give people, as Kevaughn was saying, the 100 or the 50 or even the 25, because some people are living at a 25 while somebody else is giving them a full 100. But whatever you give into the atmosphere, whatever you give to people, you'll technically reap back. You'll get it back, and sometimes get it back even worse. And then you wonder, why is it that you're going through all of this, or why is it that you don't have real people around you, or why is it that you can't seem to get your life in order? All right, so that's a really good thing that I really wanted to point out. Okay, so as a male, which you obviously are, in a relationship, what is one thing that you hate hearing in conflict? Like, whether it's relational or friendship, what is one thing you hate in conflict?
What is one thing I hate? I hate shouting.
Mm-hmm.
I utterly despise shouting. I think it has stemmed from a place of home trauma, where my mother was I think my mom's a shouter. So once I hear your voice go to a certain register, it's gonna shut down and shut up. It's something that I am trying to work on, but I absolutely hate shouting. I try to avoid people who shout. I try to ignore people who shout. I just don't hate shouting because I'm not a shouter, right?
Mm-hmm.
I will allow you to shout, and then I will stop and talk to you in a very calm tone, which sometimes comes off as very nonchalant, but it's just my response to shouting. It's if we're conversing, we're conversing. There's no need to raise your voice, really and truly. We're adults, so why are we screaming at each other? Even if in the ambit of hurt, I understand that there will be a dynamic in their tone and your vocalics, but as it pertains to level of respect that people should have and maintain for each other, it shouldn't add up to a whole shouting, vagabondish behavior, really and truly. Once you're gonna come out of composure and behave extremely badly, it's a big turn off to me.
But through conflict as well, don't you think that you also see the real person sometimes? In the sense where I remember listening, and I think I was into a TED Talk or something. But I do remember when they were saying that when you meet upon a conflict, reason why you're not supposed to avoid a conflict is because, one, you can use it for good. It can reveal who a person truly is. Or things can just end badly. But we're looking at the positive side. But don't you think that you can actually identify who somebody is truly, and it can be used as a warning before you go any further with a friendship or a relationship or even a business? Yeah.
I think it's a flip coin scenario. What do I mean by a flip coin scenario? I think that there's something called fits of rage that people experience. It's a one-off or so type event where they might have an extreme burst of anger, probably break things, damage things, get really aggressive in that moment, but it has never happened before and it possibly won't happen afterwards. A fit of rage. So if it's a fit of rage, you can't necessarily judge that person primarily from that situation. If it's a recurring fit of rage, that's their personality, that's toxic. As it pertains to personality now, I think I really feel like people should just learn how to manage their emotions. I think should learn how to understand themselves and how they react to particular things. I think that once you understand how to react and understand the dynamic of the person that you're dealing with, that how you will respond is going to be much different. If you're going into a if you're going to your manager's office, your manager did something that offended you, I'm sure you're not going to barge in stomping and screaming because you don't want to lose your work. Right?
Exactly.
So if you understand the level of relationship that you and that particular person have, and you understand what is at stake to be lost, you'll learn how to manage that particular thing, that offense, that whatever happened, right? I think that whenever people show us, I think you'll, all right. My real take on this is that you will hear, it's about what you hear. Whenever people are angry, they tend to speak their mind. And whatever comes from your tongue comes from your heart. It might be said out of rage, but at the same time, it was in your psyche. That's what you said. That's why you said it. So if you listen thoroughly throughout an argument, you'll really understand how the person perceives you, the person, how much they respect you. You will see all of that. But as it pertains to their physical action, as I said, it can be a fit of range. So you have to learn how to make both distinct and learn how to contrast and examine the situation to know whether or not this person is truly for me or against me. Because in an argument, yes, you can have mouth and mouth a clash and people get hurt by virtue of what is said. But at the same time, people might call you a particular word or try to insult you. And they don't necessarily mean it, but they're responding because of the hurt that they're experiencing. All right?
Hurt people, right?
Right. So if you're feeling hurt, you might just say something that's extremely mean because you want that particular person to feel just as hurt as you are. However, it might not be what they mean. However, if you find that the particular person is constantly using the words to degrade you and trying to make you feel down and always at you with this particular thing that, as I said, a personality, a character trait, it might not be for you. So those are people that you try to avoid, you try to ignore, you try to not have much contact with so as to not stir up any potential conflict.
That's good. And I really, it's good that you kind of pointed out the whole fits of rage and them just having a personality trait and stuff. Because I think a lot of times we make excuses for people. And especially in relationships, I've seen this way too many times. Play out whether, it's in the movies I watch or I've actually had encounters with these people. But I think we make excuses for a lot of people because we are either afraid of being alone, we are afraid of losing somebody that was really close to us. And especially with all the things that we have invested in them and then them decide, okay, they just want to leave. It takes a part of us with them. Okay. Takes a part of us with them. And we feel as though we've actually lost a lot. When the truth is, and I've been hearing it a lot even this week, friendships come, friendships go. Relationships come, relationships go. Everything has its season. And the truth is, if somebody is for you and if they're making the time for you and they're, giving it their all, even if it's in progress, because please note this, guys, everybody will not have everything together at once. And that is a myth that we tell ourselves that we're getting ourselves together. We're always in progress. And that is the best thing you could ever do for yourself. So if it is that the person is working on themselves and working to become a better friend, working, to keep the communication open, then they're growing. And that's a good thing because they realize that they were doing something wrong and they don't want to lose somebody. Because I even had a video on my channel where I had a guest speaker, her name was Chanel Mills, and she was giving her input on it's not them, it's me. And she was sharing an experience where she didn't want to lose a friend. And if she didn't take the initiative to really look into herself and say, look, I'm doing something wrong. It is me. It's not the person that I'm interacting with. Then she would have lost a friend. And I also want to say to everybody that's watching, self-discovery and being aware of your emotions is not easy. It's something that takes a lot from you. It takes a lot to do, because you're acknowledging everything. You're not just acknowledging one part of yourself. You're acknowledging everything. You're acknowledging from your childhood to your high school days, for everybody that's in university or even in your adult life. You're analyzing everything that happened to you and making everything known to yourself. And when that happens, you can become scared. You can feel as though you failed a lot of people. You can feel as though you failed yourself, because you had some really good people in your life and you let them slip through your hands just like that because you're a toxic person. It takes a lot out of you. And as a person that is and has gone through it, it is a lot to think about. Sometimes it bothers you at night. Sometimes you feel as though you really can't sleep because of everything that's being revealed to you, and you are now realizing that what somebody did way back then is still affecting you now, just in a different way. And because
Yeah.
of that, sometimes we meet people that have the same characteristics, they just have different faces because we never confronted the real issue. So a lot of times what I'll advise people, because I'm going through it, so I know, is even though it hurts, still do it. Even though it bothers you, still go for it. Force yourself to come out of your comfort zone. Force yourself to be better, not just for yourself, but for the people around you. A lot of times we get so self-centered, saying, well, it's not bother nobody else. I mean, you want to bother, I mean, you want to hurt. That's a lie. The truth is, you always have people looking up to you, whether you see them, whether you don't. You always have something to do as it pertains to the next generation. Some things have to stop with you, and some things have to start with you. And it's literally up to you whether or not you're going to pick it up, or you're going to just carry the same baton that has been handed to you down for generations upon generations. So, yeah, that's
You
a
said
lot.
something a while ago that I really want to enunciate, and
Mhm.
I feel like malice is so hard to keep. When I have people around, malice is so hard to keep. You have to see the person on the left and deliberately take the right. You have to really and truly sit down and stop the person in order to avoid them. I think it is so much easier to forgive people and move on, and to just forgive conflicts and carry on with life. The more that you have on your back to carry, the burdens you have to carry because of people, makes life so much harder to live. And whenever life is hard to live and to enjoy, you personally become bitter. So that's why the saying says that whenever you get in an argument or lie, the saying says forgiveness is like drinking poison. It's really not for them, it's for you.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, definitely. I think a lot of misconception that we have, especially as young people, we feel as though if we have up somebody, it will hurt them. And by hurting them, they're going to feel bad and they're going to apologize. And sometimes, even in our success, we can still be such a malicious person, and we can be so sad. And I always say this: even though money and success is important, it's not everything. Because if you're miserable in your life, it means nothing. And we see this when you have these people who you thought had everything that they could have wanted in life, commit suicide or go to jail, kill somebody. I don't know. But the one that we see really prevalent is when they commit suicide and everybody is literally awestruck. They're like, why? You have everything that I ever wanted in life. Like, why? Because you don't know what the person was carrying. You don't know how the person felt. You don't know if they talked about their issues. You don't know if they had somebody who they could lean on. But we just feel as though as long as we keep them up, it will hurt other person and everything will be okay. When the truth is, we are the ones that's left to deal with so much pain and so much hurt. And guys, don't be fooled. When you carry a lot of emotional pain and psychological pain, because that's a whole other issue, it can result in physical illnesses. And I don't think a lot of people truly understand that. We always say the mind is such a powerful thing when it's something good, but when it's something bad, we always want to say, no man, something really wrong, me for God, doctor. Sometimes all we need is a detox. Sometimes all we need is just get away, deal with ourselves, deal with the emotions we're feeling, forgive the person, because sometimes they will never apologize. And that's the hard fact. You have to accept the story you'll never get. Accept the apology you'll never get.
Man, some of us have self-diagnosed high blood pressure and stress.
And that's
Yeah.
true. That's true. But guys, unless you have anything else you want to say to the people. Yeah. But guys, this was a really healthy discussion. I'm really happy that I had Mr. Kevaughn here with us today to really give his expertise, especially from a male's perspective, because I think a lot of times, again, we take things from only one perspective, one side, and we don't really look into things from everybody else's side. And trust me, if I could get like a baby to be on this webinar, I would too, because they have their own issues, and I don't think even as that people don't address. I mean, they always say, "You're too young for stress," which is such a lie. It used to hurt my soul. You're too young for stress. Are you just a picking you? You know. You'd be surprised that some of these children.
Very relative.
Exactly. Some of these children experience far more than what an adult can probably manage in their lifetime. So, guys, thank you again once more for joining. I really hope you guys learned something. Again, I will leave his social medias in the description so you guys can follow up and support him in whatever he's doing. He has some really, really great pictures on there, by the way. He looks really, really nice. You gotta, yeah. So guys, and tomorrow we'll be having another special guest. I'm telling y'all, I'm not gonna want to miss it. Reason being, it's generational gap conflict resolution. So while we had the male perspective coming and speaking to us, talking to us from a male's perspective on why men do this or how men think, right? Tomorrow we'll be hearing a little bit more as to why older people and young people are clashing so much in society, why everybody feel like they need to be to themselves. We have a lot of gangs around and saying, I need to be here by myself with my crew, and young people saying that I can never be understood. So, yeah. So that's it, guys. Thank you so much for joining, and peace out.